In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can optimize an Amazon store that is already doing really well, but you just want to get to the next level with your store. So before I get started in these videos, I like to share with you the revenue that I've done in that current day, and then also the profit that's showing for that day as far as Inventory Lab goes. So basically today I have sold $2,633 and it is 1:54 p.m. So a very good start to the day. Very happy with that. And then the Inventory Lab profit is $1,398. And that is not showing the returns that I just processed just now. So if you were to look at it on a day-by-day basis, I would not be profiting that much today. And then there's also other costs that go into my store as well. But overall, doing very well. And what I wanted to talk today about is how to optimize an already thriving Amazon FBA store. And an alarm's going off, so I'm going to go ahead and snooze that. But basically, the whole goal of what you're trying to do with an Amazon store, especially once you've gotten off the ground and to the point where you're actually selling items, you're profiting items, is you're trying to figure out how can I spend as little time on this as possible and also make as much money as possible, and then also with as little money as possible. So basically what you should be tracking is your time spent in this business and how much money is currently listed on Amazon for you, and your ROI and how much money you're actually making versus your costs. And so maybe you get off the ground and you start selling 10, 15, 20, 30, 50K a month, but the baseline ROI that you have is an average of 30%, and when returns and lost items come into place, your margin actually isn't that big. And if you're making money and it's successful, that's awesome, and that's a really great place to start. I mean, I think that's a really good place to start. I started there as well. I was ripping used thermal printers for 35% ROI and doing 70, 80K months. And it was profitable actually, which is pretty funny. But the thing is that creates volatile months if items get lost, or if anything goes wrong, suddenly you haven't made as much money that month. And so along with the ROI, and so basically how you're going to optimize your ROI is you don't just source and buy anything that meets your minimum criteria. Like, you actually try to increase your quality. So maybe instead of on that 35% ROI item, you send an extra offer for 10% off or 15% off, and you just source and find systems and ways to source double the amount, and instead of just buying everything, you just send more offers. And it takes more time, but you have less money invested in your store, and instead of a 35% ROI, your overall ROI is maybe 50% now. That's why sometimes taking money out of the store sometimes really helps. Like, for example, a friend of mine just recently purchased a house who does eBay to Amazon, Josiah. Well, that was actually a little while ago at this point, but I remember him talking about how when he took a bunch of money out of the store, he's like, well, if I want to keep making the profit I'm making, I have to raise my ROI. Like, what else am I going to do here? So that he did, and he realized, I think he believed this in the first place, but he knew for a fact that he could find higher ROI stuff if he just sat down and looked for the items instead of just buying every single thing that meets the profit criteria. But on the other side of it, optimizing your time is also something that's worthwhile. And so that's why he was more in that situation, because he really wants to optimize his time. And spending money on products. Basically, if you have more money, you do have more of a luxury of having a higher hourly on your time, because instead of always looking for the highest ROI stuff, you could just buy lower ROI stuff that's going to work, factoring returns and lost items, and you can make it work and spend less time in the store. Like for example, earlier this year, I think I had just read, I think Cash Flow Quadrant, and I was like, I'm gonna run my Amazon FBA store like an investor, and I just purchased a bunch of inventory with extra cash that I had, um, and tried to do it as passively as possible. And I was like, like I'm gonna put to the side the whole idea that it needs to sell in a month. Like I'm willing for it to sell in 3, 4 months. Like I just want to like spend all the money at X ROI, and if I spend 100K at that, like I've made $60,000 over the next 6 months. So that's another way that you can run it. But the balance with optimizing your store is like, what are you wanting in your store? Like, are you really wanting to have as little money invested as possible, or are you wanting to invest as little time as possible? Like all of these things are things to factor in, and there's no right choice to this. You can do it however you want. Like this is optimizing your store. This is your business. Like how do you want it? And you can change several months in as well if you want to. But as far as the time goes, you should be thinking about like how much time you're spending on things, and like actually like documenting that and being like, like I spent 11 hours this week shipping items. Maybe I should figure out having a TaskRabbit person come over and, cut up some of my boxes and do some of my polybagging. And like, yeah, it's worth paying them $30 an hour, because then I could source for another 7 hours, let's say. Or maybe I need to use a prep center. All of these things, once you start to look and see like, I spent 6 hours this week on this. Like, how could I outsource that and do something else better? That's where, if you stack 10, 15 of these changes that you make over the course of time, suddenly you're much stronger than someone who maybe does the same amount of sales as you, but your system is so much more streamlined that you only have to spend 20 hours on your store every single week. So hopefully that was helpful. That's all I have to say today. I can go more in depth another time, but I do have a free Discord down in the description below. It will be there. Basically, we're always just talking about how to sell online arbitrage, mostly eBay to Amazon in that Discord. It's free. I'd love to see you there. Have a great rest of your day and take care.